When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Review of Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting, the A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Review of Raw for Monday night, download it Tuesday morning from the Fight Network site. It's Review of Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello and welcome to Review of Raw. It's John Pollock and Wai Ting.
Yeah, back.
How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
What a nice shirt you've got.
Oh, thank you. What a nice shirt you've got.
Yeah.
Where did you get that one?
I got it for free from Braden.
Where can people get it if I wanted to buy that?
Well, you know what? You can't buy this, but you can win it. You can buy it. You can definitely buy it.
Yeah, you're confusing people. There's no way we're.
But if someone wanted to win this, how could they do that?
Well, I'll tell you how somebody could win it. All of you watching right now, all you have to do if you want to win a T-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees, tell us what was your best and worst from this edition of Raw that we're about to talk about. Subscribe to us at this very channel and leave a comment below, and then you will enter a random draw throughout the week that Sam back here will choose. So your best comment, and we'll get in contact with you, and you can win a free T-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah, we've changed it up. As many people know from the last month of Title Bout Trivia, the trivia question is dead. It's old. It's passé.
Come on, Wikipedia is there. You know, there's no point
We want your
anymore.
opinions.
Opinions.
Because that means we can be subjective.
You know what they say about opinions?
Everyone's got one.
Is that what they say? I don't even know what they say. Alrighty.
Are you excited?
I'm very excited.
I'm not.
What, to chat this edition of Raw?
I'm always excited to talk about Raw with you, but it's going to involve me having to relive this third hour.
It was a tougher one.
I don't think I lived the first third hour.
Yeah, it was a tough one. Aren't you glad you came back for this?
No, this was not.
Don't you wish your kid was born maybe 2 weeks later?
If this Raw had been last week, I would have taken another week off. I would have been like, you know what, Wai? You got this.
Well, shall we?
You should have continued the trend, because last week I did a solo MMA report.
Yeah.
Sunday, Jay did a solo Law. Tonight, you could have taken over the reins here and done a solo Review of Raw.
Maybe I'll do a G1, or maybe an NXT. But I mean, this 3-hour show, this is the marathon.
After doing all these G1 shows and the MMA report last week, it's kind of refreshing to have someone responding to me. I feel a little crazy in my booth just talking to myself.
Maybe I'll just shut up, and since you're so good at talking to yourself.
I prefer to have the discourse. I like to hear someone talk back and disagree with me.
Well, then let's talk about this.
From Pittsburgh. Beautiful, beautiful Pittsburgh.
Is it beautiful?
I've never been to Pittsburgh.
No, me neither.
So I can only go on what everyone says, and they're usually... This is the city that Bret Hart said that if you were to stick an enema into the United States, you'd stick it right in Pittsburgh.
I mean, the name itself,
Pittsburgh.
Very unflattering name for a city, but I'm sure it's great.
From the PPG Paints Arena.
Uh-huh.
And this was a paint-by-numbers show. Michael Cole plugged that tonight, 3/4 of the SummerSlam main event will collide tonight. And that was one of those weird ways of which we are going to advertise this main event, which was not the main event of the show, where we went back and forth between 3/4 of the main event and 75% of the main event of SummerSlam. We'll be going at it tonight.
Oh. Huh. Interesting.
It's the fun world of WWE where you hear it more than once and you know it's a directive.
At least this time it's mathematically correct.
It is mathematically correct. Unlike the
anniversaries.
The anniversaries, which, hey, one guy got right tonight for an anniversary mention, but also when they do the stupid, like for a 4-way, he's got a 25% chance of winning.
Yeah.
Like percentages don't work like that.
Yeah, I guess not.
It's not. You're not picking a name out of a hat here, and that's the winner of the match. But we digress. Right. Kurt Angle, the hometown star, came out to chants of "You suck" and Kurt just playing them up, looking goofy as ever. Very easy pop, stating that this is his hometown to remind those who may not have been aware. And he guarantees an incredible show, thus putting to the test his integrity.
Yeah.
Says, I've got an incredible show planned out tonight.
They made a liar out of him.
Well, I mean, immediately after he said, I have an incredible show planned, he said, for his first example, I've booked the big show and big cast, the battle of men named Big. He then said that Miz TV will be on tonight with Jason Jordan, which is very close to my heart. And then the triple threat tonight involving 3 men, Way, 2 of which I've never heard of before.
Oh, no.
This is Way's favorite part of the show.
No. I'm staying away from this.
Let's get out of the way what he nailed. Samoa Joe. Everyone knows Samoa Joe. Yeah. But 2 debuting individuals tonight would be part of this 3-way. Braun Strowman and my favorite, which I might just call this guy forever, Roman Reigns. Ramen. The first person that sends me a photo of Roman's hair as ramen, I will personally send you a DVD to the first person that photoshops ramen onto his hair. Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman. It was a straw man argument here. Oh, I love this.
You're a terrible person.
I am recapping exactly what came out of his mouth.
Man clearly has some type of physical defect or some type of even mental defect. Okay?
Wait, he pronounces every other word fine.
Oh, maybe it's an issue with A's or O's. I don't know.
But after mentioning these names, he says, first I want to address the WWE Universe. And mentions it is the 21-year anniversary of his gold medal victory in Atlanta, which was correct, the 21st anniversary from 96 in Atlanta. And then Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman came out. Heyman sees the angle that Kurt's trying to play, where he wants to get the title off of Brock Lesnar. He lists off the opponents for Lesnar at SummerSlam, lots of boos for Reigns, and calls Joe a Samoan disgrace, and acknowledges that Kurt has a demanding chairman and he has to protect Raw and therefore wants the title off of Brock Lesnar and thinks that the 3 are going to gang up on Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam and Brock doesn't even have to be pinned or submit to lose the title and thinks that Kurt is under pressure to get this title off of Brock Lesnar, which is kind of a storyline that's just come out of nowhere. That's being presented here as Paul's theory. Heyman says if Brock loses the title, he will leave WWE and Heyman will leave with him, but says he's going nowhere because Brock isn't going anywhere. So this is a new stipulation added to SummerSlam, kind of. And I would imagine playing off of some of this John Jones news, even though Brock is going nowhere.
Well, I wonder if they would have officially announced this as a stipulation for the match, but they didn't. But
it was a promise from Paul.
The WWE Twitter did, I guess, repeat it. So take that for how you want it. I thought there'd be at least some direct mention of John Jones on this show, coming off of what was a relatively mainstream, sports event last night.
It's hard to acknowledge that challenge, though, without having Brock instantly agree to it, and you're promoting this fight then.
I think he could have at least made mention of being called out by the UFC light heavyweight champion. It would have made WWE look like a bigger deal.
It would have been a bridge to kind of acknowledge it subtly would be to have shown Dwayne Johnson and all, like he was posing with photos, did a video with Jones, was all over that UFC event, that at least puts in the back of everyone's mind of showing John Jones on your broadcast. Although the WWE is not incentivized here to really push John Jones. They have nothing to gain out of this.
You're not pushing John Jones, you're pushing Brock Lesnar by having,
John Jones call him out.
Exactly.
But that then kind of necessitates an answer from Brock. He would look very silly coming out not addressing this challenge.
I don't think he needed to outright say, hey, John Jones, I'm coming for you. He just needs to say, Paul.
Brock did respond to it.
Not on the show.
On Saturday, though,
So that's what I mean. I think all it took here was just Heyman saying, even the UFC light heavyweight champion.
Oh, you mean like Heyman bringing it up?
Yeah, sure. Just some little bit of mention, especially if you want to draw up the kind of rumors of this guy possibly leaving.
So that sets up something for the 4-way where you're at least given this option for Lesnar, which, he can keep the title. You could also, he loses without being pinned, and that can be, the fact is, though, Brock is advertised for all these dates. So even the idea of that being his departure from the WWE for the rest of the year till he comes back at the Rumble, the fact is he's advertised for the Raw pay-per-view in September and has dates remaining. So
card subject to change.
Card subject to change. You are right, but I don't know if this is a stipulation anyone is taking seriously.
We'll see.
Even if he were to lose the title. During the break, there was a News Slam update with Scott Stanford.
That only Canadians would have seen.
Yeah, only the Canadian market would have seen, plugging next week's Raw and SmackDown in Toronto. And I rewound it because they had a Paul Heyman promo in this, and I use that term very lightly because the promo consisted of Heyman stating that you will have a rare chance to go to Suplex City. Doesn't mention the city, doesn't mention the event. It's just like this insert that they probably use whenever there is a Brock appearance at a show, as he will be on Raw next Monday in Toronto. Then we had our first match of the night, the Hardys taking on Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, with the Revival on commentary, and Michael Cole bringing up that Matt Hardy called Scott Dawson an obsolete mule on Twitter. And Michael Cole was completely perplexed by this term. And Dawson has no idea what it even means. They had the advantage on Carl, attacking his left arm. There was a twist of fate by Jeff delivered to Gallows. Then they got the advantage on Jeff until eventually making the hot tag to Matt. He came in, did all the delete chants and mannerisms, hit a side effect to Anderson. Then Anderson and Gallows got the advantage, went for the Magic Killer. Jeff stopped that. And then Matt got out of the way in the corner. There's a twist of fate delivered to Anderson. Jeff hits the swanton and gets the pinfall. Crowd was hot for the finish. And then afterwards, there's a face-off on the stage with the Revival. Gallows and Anderson also got involved, so we had a big brawl with Anderson and Dash Wilder sent off the stage to the floor. Dawson ended up taking 2 twists of fate, and the Hardys fought off both teams and ended with Jeff leaping off Matt's back with a crossbody to Anderson and Dash on the floor. And it ended with Corey Graves stating that he has a premonition that this isn't over yet. And maybe he was speaking of something much larger than just this feud, because the Hardys are involved in something that I don't think is ever going to end either.
Well, at least in its current storyline form, I don't see them making that much mention of it. Because here, the Hardys no longer seem to be working that losing streak deal that they were, with Jeff taking all the pinfall losses in recent weeks. Here, the Hardys won. Back on top.
They're repaired very quickly.
They're fixed. They're glued back together.
Maybe that should be it.
The glued back Hardys.
Finely tuned Hardys.
Okay. Well, so definitely, I would say probably changing some course from where they might have been heading with a broken storyline. Now it seems like they're either working some type of 4-way with Gallows and Anderson, or maybe just a 3-way with these 3 teams, whereas Cesaro and Sheamus might be working with Rollins and Ambrose.
I think that's where they're going, and this will be the 3-way. It feels like. Renee was with Dean Ambrose backstage and was asked about his win over Seth Rollins last week and said, "Are you and Seth Rollins getting back together?" Which would be very troubling for Renee to ask, I'm sure. And Dean says they look good together. And Rollins walks in and agrees that last week was special. And Ambrose still doesn't trust Seth. Ambrose got burned once, and I won't get burned again. This segment, this played out exactly as I'm recapping it.
Yeah. I
There was some fan fiction to be written after this one.
Oh, Slash writers would have loved this.
Oh, later with the shirtless scene.
Shirts off? I mean, I really wouldn't put it past them to be doing a lot of that deliberately. Anyway.
Gotta get that female demo satisfied.
Male demo.
Male demo too.
Yeah. Anyway, they're laying it on really thick, this relationship thing. And it's really obvious, but I mean, I guess for wrestling, it kind of needs to be obvious enough that even little children could understand it. I do expect some type of swerve to come at the end of this. It's just a question of who will turn first.
Yeah, I like the fact that they're stretching it out so that when Dean finally is on the same page as Seth, I think that they've made you kind of want it. Because we were starting from a very cold place where I don't think most were interested in these two characters that are somewhat cold at the moment, especially Dean. And I'm personally into this.
It's better than what they were doing.
Yes. Yeah. So Rollins is then seen walking backstage after the break and walks into Cesaro and Sheamus. And Sheamus says that they are the opposite of him and Dean, where we hated each other at first, but now we're best friends and we're the most dominant tag team because we trust each other. Whereas you two came in like brothers, and then Seth decided to stab Dean in the back, and Dean's never going to trust Seth or anyone else ever again. So we're really getting into the psyche here of Dean Ambrose. And Dean was his last chance at success, and now Seth is alone. You couldn't even be on an episode of Ride Along. Holy moly, children are watching. And says maybe you could be on a new show called Ride Alone. To which Seth responded, don't you pay attention to the latest quarterly results? There are significant cutbacks on the network. And Seth yells at them and wants to fight one of them. You two put your half brains together and figure out which one wants to face me tonight. And Sheamus says, it will be me. Can't say I was necessarily counting down the moments to see that showdown. Tozawa and Davari. Tozawa and Tozawa would be a hell of a match. Another SummerSlam do-over from '94. Tozawa and Davari are going to have a #1 contenders match on 205 Live on Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. And then Tozawa, Rich Swann, and Cedric Alexander took on TJP, Tony Nese, and Arya Davari. And Tozawa came out with a Titus Worldwide t-shirt.
It looks a lot like our Scott Putski t-shirt.
It kind of does. Yeah. You're right.
But you can win.
If you share with us, if maybe this was your high or your low point of Raw, leave a comment. There was a tilt-a-whirl head scissors by Swann delivered to Davari. Tozawa's got his injured shoulder, and Davari snaps it. Titus is very concerned about the shoulder, and he wants to call the match off. And Tozawa yells that he is okay. No, 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 I'm okay. As they go to break, and we came back, and Tozawa was not okay. His shoulder was in a bad state here with Davari working it over. Swann got tagged in. Alexander and him hit dives to the floor. Ended with Tozawa hitting a suicide dive using his other shoulder. And then Graves pointed that out. There was a spinning wheel kick by Swann to TJP. And then Tozawa hit his senton off the top and pinned poor TJP. And they got the win.
That senton looks nuts. It is a spectacular move, but it can't be healthy for somebody long term. Jumping all the way, like you're jumping as high as you can, landing flat on your back. But good for Tozawa, I guess. You know, they're putting all the focus on him, and I think they're doing an okay job of making him stand out as much as they can for a 205 Live program. It's a tougher challenge, especially for this one, because Tozawa can't cut promos, or he doesn't cut promos. I don't know if he can or can't. You know, I think they're doing okay, but I can't see Tozawa being a hot enough challenger for Neville to pose as, you know, any type of real viable challenger come SummerSlam. I don't see the crowd being that into it.
Miz TV was next, with the Miztourage coming out first, and it was noted that Curtis Axel tweeted this week that he just celebrated his 10-year anniversary in the WWE. 10 years this guy has been here.
Well, I mean, we've been at the Fight Network for longer than that, so we shouldn't really be ones to make fun of.
Well, if you and I are Curtis Axel level, then I don't know. You and I maybe have to really have a sit-down chat with one another.
It's arguable.
Miz says that he cannot put into words how much he hates this city. Jason Jordan came out as his guest to his new theme song. What a run of theme songs they're having, from Big Cass to this crap.
To the Seth Rollins remix. I don't know if you noticed.
Yes, he had a remix where 3 words were inserted. Mm-hmm. And we definitely know that he's Kurt's son, but because he came out wearing a T-shirt with a blazer and the Kurt Angle official jeans.
Hand-me-downs.
Hand-me-downs, yeah. These were his dad jeans. And he sits down, and Miz quickly interrupts him and notes how some fans have been booing you, Jordan. And Jordan says fans can do whatever they want, but we know when it comes to boos, you're the expert on that. Miz offers to guide Jordan's career, but Jordan says, I'm good. Miz says he can help navigate through the vultures in the back, and he needs the Miz. Jordan passes on this offer, and Miz says that Angle can give him anything he wants, but Jordan doesn't want any special treatment. He wants to earn everything. And Miz says this place will chew you up and spit you out, and Jordan says he'd rather that happen to him than be associated with someone like The Miz. And Miz mocks him for latching on to a new Olympian every week, which was a funny line. Calls Kurt a washed-up jock, making all his bad decisions and wasted the best years of his life. And says no wonder he's from Pittsburgh. They're both sad, broken down, and pining for glory days that are never coming back. And Jordan gets upset at the insults hurled at his father. And Jordan says he's going to regret that. Jordan ducked a clothesline and hit Miz with a belly-to-belly suplex into Dallas and Axel, and then he left. I thought Miz was great here, and I thought Jordan has a ways to go as a speaker.
I was surprised they would draw attention to the boos that he received last week and essentially remind the audience that, hey, people don't really like you. And I would say that they were probably expecting Jordan to overcome that and to really gain the crowd's favor for this segment. I really don't think he did. You know, if anything...
Are these boos good, though, for where Jordan ultimately should likely end up?
Well, we don't know if he's ultimately going to end there.
This guy as a destination babyface, like this guy is just...
Of course.
He is 96 Rocky Maivia.
Yeah. But if you look at this segment, it seemed to be designed for him to get cheered, don't you feel? But The Miz certainly came across like it really just highlighted The Miz and how
I thought he was great.
The Miz was. I think Jordan, he comes across really stiff and just not very likable, not very sympathetic. He's also not overly skilled to the point where he's over based on talent alone. He's not. The guy is just he comes across really vanilla and mediocre at the moment. And outside of a heel turn, I'm not really sure how much more you could do with him in his current incarnation.
We had a series of pre-tape packages with all the three members, 75% of the SummerSlam main event, starting off with Roman Reigns with comments such as, "The big dog is still here, and this is his yard. And he is the only man that can beat Brock Lesnar." Sheamus and Seth Rollins, memories of 2015 coming back. Rollins' new theme, Wade, do you want to elaborate on what they have done to tinker with this golden theme?
They have somebody voice over his new catchphrase, which is "burn it down," in the middle of his music.
Yeah, so now instead of do-do-do, 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 it now goes do-do-do, do-do-do, burn it down, do-do-do, do-do-do.
I think that should have been the new theme. Just
maybe someone will take this and remix it.
Yeah.
That's all the rage these days. Sheamus got sent to the floor. Cesaro distracted and allowed Sheamus to get the advantage. They went through a break. Sheamus hit a rolling fireman's carry off the second turnbuckle, got a 2 count from that. Enziguri sent Sheamus to the floor. Rollins with his suicide dive. When you watch his suicide dive, just a match or two removed from Tozawa hitting his,
what?
They're so different.
Yeah, I mean, it's still good.
Like Rollins and Ambrose have the least spectacular suicide dives.
Oh, you can't say that.
Dude, go watch them.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Tozawa maybe charges with a bit more velocity, but I think a suicide dive is impressive nonetheless, no matter who's doing it.
I'm sorry. Anything where your hands are meeting the target and then you land on your feet, there's nothing suicide about that.
Hey, come on. That's pro wrestling, though. I don't want to see these guys actually get hurt. It's supposed to be
It's an
safe.
overdone move. It's not even an effective maneuver.
I completely disagree.
You don't think suicide dives are overdone?
But I don't think they're completely ineffective. I think they definitely get the crowd to cheer.
I don't think much.
Go back to this tape and measure the decibel levels.
Well, on this show, they were very low. We had Sheamus
What a hater.
catch him with a knee, goes for the white noise, but instead Rollins just rolls him up and pins him. So Cesaro attacks Rollins. It's a 2-on-1 attack. They hit the super white noise. The crowd was chanting for Ambrose. Rollins started to fight back on the floor. They tossed him back in. Now Ambrose ran out, and they beat him down as well, ending with a neutralizer, and Ambrose and Rollins were left laying.
This worked.
The crowd, they wanted to see Ambrose, and he finally did show up, but then they were laid out.
Built that sympathy for Seth Rollins. Really wanted Dean to come out, and I guess the only logical step is that these two get a title shot heading into SummerSlam. But what does that mean for the rest of the tag division?
Well, it's 3 teams, and they're going to have a 3-way. I think that's it.
Yes, I know. But how does a team of Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, who have never teamed in 3 years, automatically advance to get a title shot?
Well, we got to Rollins beat the champion tonight. The others have all had their chances.
Have they?
I guess the Revival hasn't.
Yeah. Huh. Maybe these guys actually have to team up and beat the other 3 teams.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen.
No?
I think they're just going to get the title shot.
Okay, well, maybe Dana will just announce it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be on a big roll. I mean, look at George. He's getting that middleweight title shot.
I guess. Just star power conquers all.
Samoa Joe's video. He says he's been putting men to sleep all over the world. He took Lesnar to his limit. No one has dominated Reigns like him. And Braun stuck his nose in his business. He's going to pay. He's not scared of anyone. At SummerSlam, he makes history, but tonight he makes a statement. Someone is going to sleep.
As impressed as I've been with Joe since he's debuted on the main roster, I've really enjoyed kind of studying just how talented he is in ring on his promos. But I think maybe the thing I enjoy studying the most about him is his choice of hairstyles.
Yeah, he's got some volume.
He's been going through a number of changes, you know? I mean, maybe...
Do you think he's using mousse?
Shaved look from time to time, but now I think he's going for the kid and play. You can see that thing grow taller and taller by the week.
Oh, wow.
I think it's a good look for him.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm picturing him now with, like, some real height on that thing. That'd be great.
That would be awesome.
Well, I'm glad you're studying Joe promos. I hope this next individual does. Bray Wyatt came out. How I've missed these. There is no escape. His words and my thoughts. Not for you, your children, and certainly for Finn Balor. No mortal man can escape the darkness. He called Pittsburgh, get this, pitiful. He says the people try to hide their sins and maybe something they are not. You cannot hide from Bray because he sees them. I am Bray Wyatt, and I am everywhere. He is hiding in the shadows as people proclaim that they are part of the Balor Club. You've been infected by the sickness of hope and think your life can be special. He sees what Balor really is, a putrid shell of a man that never was. A putrid shell of a man that never was. Mm-hmm. That's like a double negative right there. He exists on borrowed time of tomorrow's dreams and yesterday's promises. And then he falls down laughing. I was hoping that he was just going to call it a day at this point. And he is laughing at those that talk about getting up after they fall down. Hilarious stuff. He says he can do anything. Sometimes when life or Bray knock you down, you aren't getting up, and there is no escaping. And then he posed. Then Finn Balor's music hit. The lights went out and they came up. Balor was in the ring with his arms out and having his back to Bray. And Bray walks up to him and gets kicked in the face. And then a baseball slide drop kick, and Balor drop kicked him over the barricade.
Man. Yeah. The Balor attack was fine. Man, Bray's stuff is just like... He's like the philosophy major on every university campus that just, like...
Everyone skips his class.
Yeah, wears like the blazers with the little things, the patched up elbows, and just like rambles and rambles trying to impress like freshmen, women. And he's just, it's a little painful to listen to. At this point, I'm just accustomed to tuning him out whenever he speaks at length. I'm sure many people can't do what he does.
Or maybe some just won't.
It's just not very effective, you know? And with 2 weeks, what is it, 2 more episodes to go?
We've got 2 more Raws.
I was expecting this storyline to move a little bit faster than it currently is. And as it stands, I mean, these two just kind of are still just kind of getting started, and I don't really feel the heat for this yet.
No heat, and it's also, given where the programs are going, I mean, this one could go beyond SummerSlam. It could go on for a while. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Next was a significant improvement over that. The Braun Strowman video. I love this. It's just Braun yelling into a camera for 2 minutes. He says men these days like to settle issues on their phone or behind a keyboard, or even worse, with a sit-down discussion. That's the lowest. When he has a difference of opinion, he breaks things. Tonight, I will reduce Roman and Joe to whimpering piles of bruised flesh and broken bones because I want Brock Lesnar all to myself at SummerSlam. And I won't just be the monster among men, I will be the champion among men. I love this guy.
I thought when he had disagreements, he tends to beg.
You know what? Given that story last week, I really thought there was a shot he would like lose tonight and Kurt would threaten to take his title shot away at SummerSlam and he'd have to beg for it back, but they're not going that direction. But
Braun did a fine job.
This was great.
Yeah.
Of the 3 videos, I really liked the Joe one, but this was the best of the 3. I really like Braun. Braun's very good in pre-tape form because he shouldn't be talking a lot, but when he does, if the words fit his character, and that cannot be said for everybody. You weren't as much into this?
To me, he still comes across like a little goofy. You know what I mean? He reminds me a lot of Gene Snitsky.
A little bit. I get that, but he's booked seriously, and I feel it gives him. There isn't comedy that I associate with him,
and I definitely take him as a more legitimate threat. But there's just something about his promo that seems not scary on the level of Samoa Joe's, or even his presence isn't as scary as a Brock Lesnar's.
So Graves going to break reminds us 75% of the main event of SummerSlam is coming up next. And to close out the second hour was the triple threat match with Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, and Roman Reigns.
Could you notice, can you understand why some weeks they might treat the main event like the real main event, and why some weeks they might treat the 10 o'clock hour as the main event?
I looked this up during the show. During the third hour, I was very bored. Do you know how many times this year the second hour has done more than the third hour? Just guess, like a percentage basis.
I'm going to say maybe 60% of the time.
100%.
Oh, okay.
Every second hour has beaten the third hour this year. And I feel over the last month, you've really seen that shift, that the second hour is where we put the main event. It's got the most people. I'm sure that the main event has the highest quarter hour of that second. And they're booking it as such. Because this week really drove it home how this third hour was nothing. And I think that's what they're looking at, the most people watching. But it was to the detriment of the show because this audience was tuned out after this 3-way. This was what everything was built around, and they knew nothing was following it, and nothing did. So the match began. Strowman splashed both in opposite corners, and then we went through a commercial break. Joe and Reigns dumped Strowman to the floor. Joe used a Fujiwara armbar, but Strowman and Reigns then fought into the crowd. Joe applied the coquina clutch to Strowman on the floor. Then Joe rolled to the floor later, avoiding a Superman punch, but Reigns just ran around, came off the steps, and hit him with one. Reigns then ran at Strowman for a spear, but got met with a big boot on the floor, and then Reigns was thrown into the post and the steps. Joe hit a senton in the ring for a 2 count on Reigns, applied the coquina clutch. Strowman broke that up, hit a power slam. Reigns made the save. And then Strowman lifted the steps, but got stopped by a Reigns Superman punch. He attacks Strowman with the steps. He gets sent to the floor and then spears Samoa Joe, who's staggering, and Reigns pins Joe to win the 3-way.
Do you think that fall means anything?
I wouldn't read too much into it. Reigns beating Joe, that had kind of been, Joe's has beaten Reigns. I think it's twice now. Yeah. So this gives Reigns a win over Joe. I kind of like the fact that Joe was holding that over Reigns' head. But Reigns gets the win.
Good match. I think these three have good chemistry with each other. I think they're all heavy dudes who can all work a pretty fast-paced style. And I think it's totally unlike, heavyweight matches from previous eras, especially with Joe in there, Strowman too, who's a very agile big man. And you throw in Brock in there, I think the match will be really fast for a heavyweight match.
Yeah, I like this. It was pretty good. I think that 4-way is going to be great. And you watch Like those four in particular at the size they're at, and I'm watching it thinking, man, these guys are going to have a lot of injuries in their futures.
Maybe. I mean, but the fact that they're so large means that they can hit each other they can probably sustain a bit more punishment than your typical wrestlers.
Well,
right?
they've, for the most part, I mean, held up. I mean, Joe's not been a guy that's been riddled with injuries, and he's been working a pretty intense style for a while. Lesnar, hasn't had too many significant injuries. Braun just had the elbow. And, I mean, Reigns, to me, you could argue he's working the hardest because he's doing it every week and on the house shows and doing those big matches. And, I mean, he's another guy that's outside of his hernia he had, which was just a freak thing. All four have largely held up. Big Show's in the back doing push-ups. Enzo walked in, apologizes that he's gotten Big Show into this mess. And Big Show says he appreciates it, but he's okay. He doesn't mind fighting Cass. He's got to learn a lesson in respect. Elias is in the ring. We've had another man lose his surname. And he's lost not just Samson, but also the Drifter. He's just Elias now, which sounds so boring. Elias.
I feel bad for the people actually named Elias.
Well, it's all in having a great last name at the end, like Elias Theodoro. That sounds like a great name, but if he was just Elias, Elias, like it just sounds like a kid you would pick on in school. Oh, it's Elias. I don't think Elias Theodoro got picked on in school, but I don't know. It just feels it's such a generic name.
Elias Theodoro should change his last name to Samson. Really,
he could.
I mean, he's got the hair.
It's free now. So he identifies himself as just Elias and says it's here in Pittsburgh that he grew up. And he lists off the various sites in the area. But what stands out the most are the people. And they inspired him to write this song. And you almost just felt this crowd be like, great, we're in for this. And he sang about the city of bridges, but it's really the city of pits and a city that has no hope. He says he's back in Pittsburgh. What a terrible choice. The people are garbage, but at least you can hear my voice. And then was interrupted by music that you would have no idea who it was until you saw him come out, and it was Kalisto's music. Here to save the Pittsburgh crowd.
I actually thought Elias was great. I thought this was probably his best since his debut. I thought his setup was really good. Total babyface promo, naming the landmarks, beautifully setting up the swerve. And I thought the song this week actually had a bit of substance to it before they actually cut him off.
Well, let's call that the high point then, because then they had an 8-minute match that included a commercial break. Booker slipped up and called him Elias Samson. Kalisto went for a head scissors and got tossed into the ropes. After the break, it's all Elias. Crowd was dead. Seated senton to Elias for a 2 count, and then Elias set up his finish by hitting him with a knee to the jaw and hit his finish, which is called Drift Away.
Drift Away.
Drift Away.
Okay.
And he won.
Yeah, this match definitely...
This was the third hour.
It probably did not need to go half as long as it did. It was supposed to be a showcase for Elias. Just get him in there, do the move, and get out.
That was the main event, the showcase. Charlie was with Alexa Bliss, who laughed over the fact that Bayley's facing her at SummerSlam, saying, I didn't say any of this last week, but I beat her in San Jose. I showed she couldn't be extreme, and I didn't really want to face Sasha again. But never did I think that Sasha would lose to Bayley. Called Sasha a petulant child, makes fun of her being at home to watch SummerSlam, and notes that Sasha's on a promotional tour across the world, so there's no one here to help Bayley tonight when she takes on Nia Jax, and says it will be a massacre. Ambrose and Rollins, sans shirts,
Yes.
had a meeting in the locker room. And Rollins thanks Dean for running out to help him. And Ambrose says, I didn't help you. Dean says, I know that was your plan, to create a scenario where I'd look bad if I didn't show up. Dean doesn't think Seth would have done the same if the roles were reversed. And he leaves as a tear forms in Seth Rollins' eye and he reaches out as Dean walks out of the locker room, and he clutches his chest with passion in his eyes and desire in his heart.
I look forward to the music video montage that'll explain this entire storyline beautifully.
What song would you use?
Maybe like something from Boyz II Men, maybe.
Yeah, like Dido, White Flag, maybe.
I don't know that one.
Something beautiful. Adele.
Okay.
Adele is good for these kinds of reunions.
Yeah.
Then Bayley took on Nia Jax. Jax hit a headbutt, and then Bayley is on her back and goes for a choke, gets thrown off, and is tossed to the floor, landing on her right shoulder. Went through the break, and Bayley would sell her shoulder throughout the rest of the match. Crowd was dead for this, and repeatedly gets run into the turnbuckle shoulder first by Nia. Bayley tried to fight back while clutching her shoulder. You know, I got the story of this match that it was Bayley trying to fight back, and the problem was it was just Nia's selling was terrible. Bayley's offense wasn't all that great either. And it was a long match on a long show during a dead hour. And
with a shitty finish.
Yeah. Out of nowhere, Alexa jumps Bayley on the floor, but Bayley fights her off, and then Nia crashes into the steps. Bayley runs into the ring and gets the count-out win in 8:39. So, consider me unimpressed.
The wrestling wasn't good. It didn't do anything to build your challenger, you know? Your challenger squeaks out a win by coming back into the ring before she's counted out.
The real threat is Nia.
Yeah, it just sucked. And
where do you think this is going? Is this going to be a singles match at SummerSlam, or are the other women going to get involved? Because it's weird with Sasha and Nia. So they're so focused in this story that's a singles program at the moment. But
are they really though? Are they focused at all?
Well, they brought up Nia here dominates her in this match, and you have Sasha, who Alexa's saying, I didn't want to face her again. Like, Sasha's the bigger issue here than Bayley, who she's beaten repeatedly.
I think it's unlike them, though, to change matches once they've put up the graphic and everything.
They did that at WrestleMania this year. Remember they inserted Nia near the end?
Yeah.
When it was thought to be a three-way?
I mean, the fact that they did it already at WrestleMania kind of tells me that they might not do it again here. I hope they don't go ahead and change it. But then again, I can't say I'm all that interested in Bayley versus Alexa either. It's another pretty cold feud heading into SummerSlam.
Renee is with Big Cass for an amazing interview. Cass says that Enzo and Big Show can't teach him a lesson in respect when they don't respect themselves. Calls Enzo, you might want to cover your ears, an insect. And Big Show, this was awesome, is nothing more than a miscreant, albeit a 7-foot pile of it.
What?
I rewound this to make sure I heard this right. I'm pretty sure he screwed up and meant to say excrement, and instead he said miscreant.
Wow. Oh, boy.
So that was this segment.
Well, at least it was in the third hour where no one
was awake to realize. Enzo comes out and says that Cass has done some terrible things. Enzo's no angel. He's done some horrible things, but he has never, ever eaten the brown part of a bruised banana. This was the closest I've come to just stopping and saying, way you handle the rest of this. This was... have you ever seen a guy go up on stage and just bomb doing stand-up?
Oh, yeah.
This was that. This crowd reacted to nothing here. He's telling banana jokes and said he would rather eat the bruised part of a banana or even a banana peel than not keep it real.
You know, for one day, I would love for him and Bray Wyatt just to switch scripts and see how one would sound doing the other's promo.
I would love to hear Bray Wyatt do an Enzo promo. He says he's got a guy who's going to give Cass a reality check and leave Cass black and blue in the city of black and yellow. This might have been the worst Enzo promo I've ever heard. It was definitely hurt by the crowd's lack of reaction, but it was bad material too. Like nothing clever, nothing witty.
Yeah, this program really has done no favors for this man. I don't think it's done many favors for Cass either. You know what I mean? We're a month into it, and I can't say either man is benefiting from being separated from one another.
This has been a cold feud where, at the very least, I don't think most expected Enzo to get much out of this, but the flip side was, well, they are behind Cass. But I think Cass is getting dragged down by this, and this match really emphasized that to me. Show grabbed him before the bell rang. Eventually, it began. Show drops him with a shoulder block. Crowd could not care for any of this. Show hit an elbow drop, called for the choke slam, but Cass kicked his leg, clipped the knee of Show, who's grabbing it in pain. Cass attacks the knee, comes off the turnbuckle, he gets chopped. Show hits a splash, and then runs the ropes and hits the big boot. And then, as Cass is in control, Enzo just jumps him, gets onto his back. The bell is called, so we get a DQ after 5 minutes. And Cass lays out Enzo with a boot. So these two fools are laid out by Cass. Show gets up and hits the knockout punch to Cass. And the show ended on the flattest note possible. This third hour was so brutal.
It was really bad. This was a really shitty ending to Raw. The match was no good. This heavyweight match felt like a heavyweight match in contrast to the previous heavyweight match. And I just don't get the booking with the babyface teaming up with the other giant, basically throwing in the towel in a match that he wasn't able to win, and double teaming the heel.
It was so backwards, and we got this closed Raw for, at best, should be a kickoff match at SummerSlam. And I'm done. This is a bad feud. I was open-minded about it up until this show. Yeah, this third hour to be significantly dragged Raw down. I can stomach the 2 hours. The 2 hours, it was a fine show. There was some productive things, but this third hour dragged my opinion of this show down a lot.
Was it worse than 205 Live?
This third hour was worse than 205 Live because I got no good wrestling in this third hour. At least
that's true.
At least I get good wrestling in front of a dead crowd on 205 Live. I cannot say that about this third hour. Everything was bad in this third hour. Everything. So that was Raw. Brutal. So, how can people...
how do we pick ourselves up after that?
If you have multiple bad moments from Raw, can you multiple post in the thread on YouTube?
I mean, the rule is
one
best and worst, so you got to pick one of each. Do your best to look for the best. There was some very good on the show.
No, there was a pre-third hour. There was listen. I think it was a fine show.
Triple Threat was good. The Heyman promo was good. You could even argue the Rollins-Ambrose stuff was pretty good.
Yes. Yeah. This was not. I won't paint the entire show as bad, but the third hour was as dreadful as any recent hour of Raw I can recall.
It was pretty awful.
All right, well, that's it, folks. SmackDown, pretty loaded show this week. I think we can guarantee that even if it's a screwy finish or something, I think SmackDown is going to be significantly better.
I look forward to SmackDown.
Yes, big show from Cleveland on Tuesday with John Cena, Shinsuke Nakamura, and AJ Styles and Kevin Owens. So we will be back Wednesday afternoon reviewing that show. Also, big G1 show on Tuesday featuring Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi, which up to this point, that's a match that could top everything that's preceded it so far. So that should be a lot of fun. So we'll be back on Wednesday with the review of SmackDown. Once again, you can go to youtube.com/liveaudiowrestling, submit your best and worst of Raw, and you could win a shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees. And of course, liveaudiowrestling.com for all your news, all our podcasts, and fashion tips from Wai Ting.